I know it's crazy, but it's
You're watching Channel Z, the world's leading zombie apocalypse channel, broadcasting live from Studio Z.
Makes me act the way I do.
Hello, I'm Liz Grumbach.
And I'm Alana Rain, and welcome to Brain Dead Theater.
This is where we examine zombie media, television, and movies to explore what we can learn from fictional zombies in our current apocalyptic moment. Alana and I are joined today by Steven Schlozman, professor of psychiatry and author of the Zombie Autopsies. I've had the opportunity to see you on Undead Live today a few times. I loved your discussion of zombie movies as cautionary tales today. Steve, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me back.
Yeah, it seems like you've been through a lot today. I don't know if you want to keep talking about that or not, but there's been some memory issues or maybe some dead things.
Again, I had already forgotten it, and now you've brought it back. It just keeps. It's okay. I'll forget it in another 2 or 3 minutes, so it's not worrisome. I do have an appointment scheduled, to talk about this with somebody tomorrow, and I have my iPhone set to remind me of it. So I think everything should be fine. And Larry and I will talk about it some tomorrow too, to try and make more sense of it.
Oh, I'm so glad we'll be checking in with you. And I have to say, I'm so glad y'all have been talking about it all day. It reminded me to make an appointment. My sister bit me the other day. And so I've been kind of experiencing some weird symptoms too. So I'm going to get checked out just in case, Phoenix is a little overrun right now. So we'll see what's up. Okay. Maybe I'll check in with y'all tomorrow okay. too. So I wonder if we could kick off and just say a little bit about the theme for the film clips that you've chosen for us to discuss tonight.
Sure. Well, actually, you guys sort of chose it with me, and I owe that to you. Basically, y'all asked me to think of movies that, to my mind, display our worries, concerns, and hopes in an apocalyptic scenario. What do we think would lead to the problems? What do we think would be the result of the things that lead to the problems? And then what can we do to make the problems that come in an apocalyptic scenario more tolerable and even actually touch our hearts, actually make us feel better about ourselves? So we have 3 movie clips, each one demonstrating a different aspect of what I just mentioned.
That sounds fabulous. And I kind of can't wait to dig our teeth into that. I wonder if you would introduce the first clip for us today.
I will.
You're beginning to make me nervous, Liz.
Yeah. I was going to say I'll do it, but I don't think I'm clever enough to come up with the puns. They're too biting. Sorry.
It's just, I think it's, it was the bite that I got. Sorry,
right.
y'all.
Right. So the first clip is from my favorite zombie movie ever made, by actually a dear friend of mine who passed away. This is George Romero's 1978 Dawn of the Dead. Just to set the stage for the making of this movie, he made Night of the Living Dead in 1968. It was his first film. At the time, he was a cameraman for Mr. Rogers, believe it or not. He didn't know he would be a filmmaker. He didn't even copyright the movie. It's famously an uncopyright movie, which means it's an eminent domain film. It was such a success that he became anxious about making another film. He's made some other great films in between that. He made a movie called Martin, a great vampire film, but he didn't make his next zombie film in 1978 with Dawn of the Dead. And this opening scene that we're going to watch is the opening scene of the movie itself, and what you're going to see can only be described as chaos. The very thing I led off this whole day in talking about, my fear of how chaos takes away from our ability to rationally approach a solvable problem.
So you believe the dead are returning to life and attacking the living?
I'm not so sure what to believe, Doctor. All we get is what you people tell us. And it's hard enough to believe
It's fact.
It's hard enough to believe without you coming in here and...
You're not running a talk show here, Mr. Berman. You can forget pitching an audience the moral bullshit they want to hear.
You're talking about abandoning every human code...
Franny, get the new list of rescue stations Charlie's receiving on the emergency.
Rescue stations.
Half of those are inoperative as of now.
Charlie, these are rescue stations. We can't send people to inoperative rescue stations.
We've had old information on the air for the last 12 hours.
little ones.
Gibbons wants them.
Kill him, Dick. Tell Gibbons to see me.
Public figures like yourself that this situation is being dealt with irresponsibly by the public at large. You have not listened. You have not listened to the situation for 3 weeks. What does it take? What does it take to make people see?
People aren't willing to accept your solutions, Doctor, and I, for one, don't blame them.
Every dead body that is not exterminated becomes one of them. It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
Dan!
Someone should type that up.
You're dropping like was. I think Foster's right. We're losing.
We're blowing it ourselves.
What do you mean? A dead body must be exterminated, either by destroying the brain or severing the brain from the rest of the body. This situation must be controlled before it's too late. They are multiplying too rapidly.
What the hell's going on? Who killed those supers? Somebody has the authority to do that. You seem to forget. Garrett, who told you to kill those supers?
Nobody. I killed them. They're out of date. You know you're on the air?
What the hell's going on?
I want those supers on the air all the time. Without those rescue situations on screen, every minute people won't watch us. They'll tune out.
Are you willing to murder people by sending them out to stations that have closed down?
I want that list up on the screen every minute that we're on the air.
Anybody need a ride?
What the hell you doing? Get back on this console.
What is this, a news show or a football game? Get that idiot off the air! Huh? Be a doggone television show!
Officer, stop those men. Lucas, get back here on the console. Damn. Get somebody in here who can run this thing.
Get that fucking idiot off the air! Hey!
Run this thing. Come on, triple pay. We're staying on the air.
All right, Dr. Foster, the public needs facts. What do you have to give us?
They kill for one reason. They kill for food. They eat their victims. Do you understand that, Mr. Berman? That's what keeps them going. If we'd listened, if we dealt with this phenomenon properly, without emotion, it wouldn't have come to this. There is a martial law state in effect in Philadelphia, as in all other major cities in the country.
It's just crazy. It's completely insane. Hey, Donald, you know this guy belong on goal.
And the dire phenomenon. Should we be unable to check the spread because of the emotional attitudes of the citizenry toward these issues of morality?
Jim, you take it.
It is the order of the OEP by command of the federal government, the President of the United States. Citizens may no longer occupy private residences, no matter how safely protected or well-stocked. Citizens will be moved in the central areas of the city. The bodies of the dead will be delivered over to specially equipped squads of the National Guard for organized disposition.
Yeah.
Soothing.
Yeah, God, every time I watch that, or maybe especially in our current times, I mean, given the fact that there were a kind of a similar media circus happening this evening, right, with two different town halls competing for airwaves, people yelling. I didn't watch them, so I don't know that people were yelling, but the debates we've seen, like that kind of breakdown of fundamental civics, as well as the infrastructure that provides for the civics, sets the stage for what can only be a bad outcome. Like it's hard to imagine things going well.
Right. And it's interesting because, I see the chaos on that set, and, I'll see people striving to do their best within their area of expertise. And, some egos get involved. Some people try to pull rank. And what strikes me the most, and the tension that is built so brilliantly, is that all of that just should not matter. And we need to figure out a way to work together, that somehow if there's a way to say, okay, well, you're good at this, you're good at that, let's be calm in the face of this crumbling infrastructure, politically, medically, socially, which seems all very apparent from that scene, that we need to help each other and figure out how we're going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the body politic is ill at that point, right? Like it's as if there's an entire organism that has different organs within it that are not functioning correctly. So if all of them could play their appropriate roles, then things would actually start to go a little bit more smoothly. But the chaos just keeps growing and growing and growing. There's one guy, the guy who comes in later, we find out is the helicopter pilot, which doesn't spoil anything for you. He's calm. He has a plan. He comes in, he shows his ID and goes up to the front. That's part of the storytelling, to say, how does this guy stand out from the rest of the crowd where just really all hell's breaking loose? And a little Easter egg in there, that's actually George working the terminal. That's George himself in the opening scene, which is sort of fun to watch.
Well, that makes me so happy. And I actually, this reminded me too of something that you said this morning, I think, Steve, which is this, as a lesson we should learn to resist chaos, because we do have more time than we think to kind of just sit and think about what our next steps are when we're in these moments of trauma or chaos.
And it's something we have to actively do, because we didn't really evolve to do that so well. We actually, act.
Actively breathe.
Right, exactly. Like say, stop, just stop. Like our lower brain came online from an evolutionary perspective way before the upper brain did, the higher parts of the brain, the cortex that allows you to solve the problem. When somebody comes into the emergency room and they say, I don't feel good, we don't scream at them, why don't you feel good? Because if we scream and they scream, it's just our two lower brains talking to each other and banging heads. We say, calm down. Or maybe you don't say calm down because that sounds a little patronizing. You say, how can I help you? Can I get you something to eat? Let's take care of the basic needs first, and then let's figure out how we together can solve the problem. No matter how short you think the time is, we have more time than you think we do.
I love that as the lesson we learned from this clip. And we have a comment from Erica that I just want to highlight. And I want to remind our registered conference goers that we will actually be featuring and showing this film at our film party. So if you want to check your ZTV guides, make sure you check your ZTV guides to kind of have fun commenting on the rest of this film. We're trying not to spoil it for everyone.
I won't say any more.
And then we also do have a comment from Athena Actopus too. You know, I would say don't feed chaos, but it can help sometimes to embrace the chaos and adapt rather than fighting the chaos. And I wonder, before we move on to the next clip, if we could talk about adaptability.
Yep. It's a really, really, really good point. So when I say don't feed the chaos, when I say don't sort of push it, I'm not saying don't think that there will not be chaos. I mean, the definition of resilience isn't in making the chaos go away. It's learning to tolerate the chaos and slow things down so that you can engage in active problem solving. So I guess the word I should really be using is resilience here, because that's literally, or at least in the medical literature, defined, and the psychological literature, defined as this ability to solve the problems that are solvable, to put up with the things that you actually have to. It's kind of a version of the Serenity Prayer, the one that you hear in 12-step programs. Like, figure out what you can solve, take care of it, figure out what you got to put up with it, and know the difference between those two. And that takes an active mind.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I think that maybe now is a good time to move into our next clip to think about maybe the ways in which other zombification can happen. I wonder if you'd introduce it for us?
Sure. And I anticipate some people potentially being not put off, but maybe surprised by this choice. I wanted to show a scene from the movie WALL-E. First of all, I think it's a beautiful movie. This is a Pixar film, the Disney Pixar film. Aesthetically, it's beautiful. But I also find it one of the most frightening films I've ever seen. And I say that with my tongue only slightly in my cheek. It's not the apocalyptic Earth scene. That terrifies me. I'm terrified of our wasting this precious resource. But what really, really, really scares me in the movie WALL-E are the people in the spaceship, the remaining humans, who rather than sort of mourn what they've lost or try to figure out how to get back what they've lost, they float around in these devices, get heavier and heavier, are played to by basically a consumerist culture, and just purchase, buy, as if that's all there is to life. And that feels perilously close to something that we could head to.
Oh, that's wonderful. And here we go with that clip.
So let's hover over to the driving range and hit a few virtual balls into space.
Now, we did that yesterday. I don't want to do that.
Well, then what do you want to do?
I don't know. Something.
Wow. Make a play, scream.
No, it doesn't sound.
Look, I'm tired of it.
If you can't fold the straw, the episode isn't any good.
But over here.
Whoa.
Hello? Tunnel. I'm in a tunnel. I can't hear you.
There you are.
By and large, everything you need to be happy. Your day is very important to us.
Hey, drink the bun. Here, take the cup. Hey, take the cup.
Please remain stationary. A service bot will be here to assist you momentarily.
Stewards? Hello?
Please remain stationary. A service bot will be here to assist you momentarily.
What's that? What's going on? John?
Eva?
No. John.
Eva?
Hi, Wally.
A is for Axiom, your home sweet home. B is for by and large, your very best friend.
And I'm seeing that we might be having some problems with showing the rest of that clip, but I wonder, Steve, if you would talk a little bit about what happens in the rest of that clip.
So from what I recall, they are first that scene we just skipped out of. They're teaching the kids everything they need to know, presumably about being human, which is essentially the alphabet, but standing for just stuff they can buy or stuff from whom they buy things. So it's just about stuff. It's about stuff that will wear out so that they'll need new stuff. And then there's the very next scene. The people are going into the store called By and Large, which is a great punish name. And they say, did you hear that blue is the new red? Remember, they're all dressed in red. And they say, oh, what do you know about that? And they push a button and now they're blue. And they feel better for about 8 seconds until somebody says the next blue will be yellow. And then they become yellow. It's this kind of ongoing feeding of these very, very small, satisfying to your brain moments that prevent you from looking around, as the one guy does when he gets knocked off the chair and Wally helps him up. He's like, oh, what's this? This is something new. And you're like, oh, stay off the chair. Don't get back on the chair. But he's back on the chair. He comes back later to play a larger role.
Yeah. I just saw one of the comments that said, I made my son watch this at 4. And I actually think this should be required viewing for all children as a cautionary tale. It deals with, such a fundamental question of what makes us human. I mean, what does make us human? And even, I would argue that Wally perhaps is more human than the humans, because if he's from a time when he was programmed, when things weren't as bad, where things weren't just so out of control and so incredibly sad, that maybe he's echoing those voices from the past, but which could have been our voices.
Yeah, he's like the keeper of the story, right? Like he's literally a computer. He's a repository of this information, but in this case, it's the information of humanity. And the irony, the wonderful irony, besides the obvious irony, right, that it's a robot who's more human than the humans, is the fact that you can't look at the resort they go to in the final scene of the clip and not think of Disney World or Disneyland. It looks exact, especially like Disney World, with the pools, the monorails that go past. The makers of this film somehow are aware of the Frankenstein monster they are themselves creating. I think that's the most interesting part, in some ways, about the creation of the film itself.
And just quickly, like that, I haven't seen it in a while, but when he falls off the chair and he's just at such an utter loss of what to do, and there's just this brief moment of connection and humanity that we see in his eyes when he makes contact with Wally. Yeah. And maybe he's recognizing his humanity in that moment. Like, what have I lost? And I'm going to find it through this machine.
It's one of the coolest stories. I think it's it's still my favorite Pixar film. It's a close tie maybe with Up, which always I just cry my way through the first 40 minutes of. But it's I think the most profound one they made because of those questions it asks and because of its capacity to predict either ruin or salvation for humans. Oh, can't hear you, Liz.
And
Oh,
I
you're
think
up.
especially relevant in a time right now where we're all online all the time. And I think we're lucky enough that we're online for SAM 2020. But this seems like an important reminder to sign off occasionally, move around for your physical and your mental health.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, I'm grateful for the internet, and I mean, I actually think it's an amazing thing to have. I think, especially during this time where we are isolated in the way that we are, it's hard to imagine how we would have gotten through without it. We would have, obviously, but it's so great to have it. Having said that, it really is a poor stepsister to the real thing, right? To like the being able to be with people, to be with one another. That to me is what I miss most about the current isolation and what I don't get through the modality that you and I are talking right now.
Thank you so much for that, Steve. And I think looking forward to our next clip and the ways that we can think about humanity and how to be human, I wonder if you'd introduce that for us.
Sure. So the next clip, it's the oldest one well, no, it's not. The Dawn of the Dead was 1978. This one's 1985. This is the movie Mask. It was Eric Stoltz's breakout film. It also starred Cher as the mother. It is a wonderful film, a true story of a boy with craniofacial dysplasia, which is a very rare genetic syndrome, as he'll explain in this clip, that leads to increased layers of bone, calcified areas around the cranium. That's why it's called cranio, and then facial around the face. It's also called, in the vernacular, lionitis, because you end up looking like you have the face of a lion. And what I want viewers to pay attention to here is the various ways people interact with the speaker or the main character, the person with this ailment whose name is Rocky. Do they other him? Or in other words, make him into something other than themselves? Or do they think of him as equally human as them? Because one of the risks in the apocalypse is our making these distinct dichotomous categories.
Okay. Cranium circumference, 67 centimeters.
67 centimeters.
Last one, kid.
All right.
Yeah.
Philly.
Mandible, 32.5 centimeters.
Mandible, 32.5.
Well,
now that's good news, Rocky. Since your last checkup in April, your jaw measurement only increased 1/8 of an inch.
Wow. I'm cured. I'm healed. I can go home now. It's the water in the Zuza, Bill. Picture time.
That's your team better than we do.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Oh, Rocky, you look great.
I want to get my hair.
You look fine, Rocky.
Okay.
Okay.
Shoot.
How's your mom, Rocky?
She's great.
Stand still. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Turn out.
I blinked.
Why don't you fill me in on this, doctor?
The patient was first diagnosed with craniodiaphyseal dysplasia at 4 years of age when it was discovered that calcium was depositing at an abnormal rate throughout his skull.
Mine pal, calcium.
And what have we learned about this disorder?
It's extremely rare, one in approximately 22 million births.
How was it first described?
I know. They call it lionitis. Means look of the lion. You new around here?
Yes, I am. Cause?
It's caused by 2 recessive genes and happens to the offspring of normal parents. His mother had an uneventful pregnancy, didn't ingest any chemical substance or terodogen during gestation.
That means it wasn't my mom or dad's fault.
Hello, Rocky.
Hey, Dr. Rudinsky.
Good to see
How's
you
it
again.
going?
Our data on this patient, Dr. Rudinsky, supports your article in the New England Journal of...
How are you feeling today, Rocky?
Pretty good. How are you feeling?
Yeah. You still have those headaches?
Yeah. They've been getting pretty bad lately.
And I'm sorry to interrupt that, but we seem to be having some policy violation on our videos problems. And I don't want to cut that off, but Steve, I wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about the end of that clip so we can keep talking about it.
Sure. So what you saw there is basically we saw what we needed to see, but I'll tell you how it ends. You've got the younger doctor in the sort of white coat, the thing that in some ways separates not just the white coat, but his entire demeanor, his entire presentation, separating himself from Rocky, talking about Rocky as if he's not even in the room, almost as if he's an it as opposed to he's a he. And then you've got the older doctor, the expert, the one who wrote an article in the New England Journal of Medicine, Dr. Rudinsky, who comes in and does that sort of cool handshake that ends with them like doing a toke, basically. And the younger doctor kind of hangs on to the shoulder of the older doctor and says that he's very curious how Rocky is making his headaches better, because the older doctor's just asked Rocky, what do you do for your headaches? And Rocky says, my mom sings to them and they get better. And I know this sounds like a kind of hippie-ish moment, but that's actually what today we would call just mindfulness, right? Like the sort of mindful approach to pain, which we know can reduce active levels of pain. And it's this young doctor who can't quite get his mind around the relationship that the more experienced doctor, who isn't more experienced by virtue of his age, that may be the case here, but by virtue of his approach to Rocky, can connect with and actually help Rocky so much more than knowing every last thing there is to know about this disease.
Yeah, I mean, narratively, it's always very interesting when movies, they feel the need that they have to have a character as big as a jerk as that doctor. I mean, I was going to say another word, but there might be kids watching tonight. So, we immediately were like, ugh, that doctor, like because we so identify with Rocky, and those other doctors that are laughing and taking pictures and they have this rapport. It makes me just think of all the zombie films that I've been watching lately, where the zombies don't talk, they moan. It's like, oh, maybe we would feel differently if they actually talked and they said, I'm in pain, or I'm, I need food, I need brains, but instead they're just screaming. And so it dehumanizes them, because Rocky, he's endearing. His speech makes him endearing.
And I wonder if we can address this question in response by Kim Pearson. Do we not know otherness as unconscious bias?
It sounds almost like a rhetorical question. It's. I think we will other people in a large part. Like if I were to come to the defense of the doctor in the white coat, the one who comes in and is so off-putting, I would say he is himself frightened. Not that he'll get this disease. He knows the science behind it. He understands it's a rare genetic syndrome, but he's frightened that humans could take a turn and somebody could be in Rocky's predicament. And that threatens literally it's an existential threat to him, like a threat to his very existence, his sense of self. So he intellectualizes it. He gets that distance. But if we could carve into his unconscious, if we could get to that, wider part of the bottle below just the neck that's above the water, we could see that what's there is this deep, deep insecurity that he might also harbor some of these imperfections that he's so willing to put on Rocky. As opposed to seeing Rocky as a person. So, I mean, this is part of the work, right? It's not just to help people like Rocky, but it's to help that doctor who probably could be really, really useful in an apocalyptic scenario if you could get him to drop that veneer, if you could make him comfortable enough with him. He's a smart guy. It would be really good to have him be able to use those smarts in a way that doesn't piss everybody off.
It's almost like if we had the doctor in the first scene, the chaos scene, where he would land.
Yeah. So and then Rudinsky, you can imagine Rudinsky walking into the chaos scene and saying, wait. Let's have a drink. Sit down. Let's talk for a second. Like slowing things down a little bit. That's what Rudinsky basically does.
And we are running out of time today, but I wonder, Steve, if you wanted to lead us out, maybe calling back to some of the lessons that you introduced this morning, and what these clips have taught us about being human and retaining our humanity.
Sure. So I think we come back. I know I end up sounding like a broken record, but we get to this place where chaos and fear ricochet back, against one another. So whether the dog's wagging the tail, tail's wagging the dog, doesn't matter. You start with fear, you get chaos. Start with chaos, you get fear. But once you're on that track, it's awfully hard to lead it. When you get there, you sort of abandon your trust in the scientific process, in your ability to run the experiments. You abandon your ability to be empathic, which we all have in us. That's what our mirror neuron system tells us. And we forget our already present advantages. We decide that everything is just we're just screwed, basically. There's nothing that we can do, and then we become excessively rigid in the way we solve problems.
Thank you so much. And that's the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve. For ZAM 2020 registrants, I just want to remind you to check your ZTV guide. Today, there will be an evening activity called Ethically Drink Your Way Through the Zombie Apocalypse. You'll be joined by Jason Robert and Stephanie Birdsall. So whether you've been eating popcorn with us tonight, or brains. We hope that you'll have a good night. Thank you for joining us for Brain Dead Theater. We'll see you at, or perhaps in, the movies. Bye, everyone.
It's crazy, but it seems so logical. I can't deny that there is something supernatural with you.